Today, we are examining the life and enduring legacy of Helen Adams Keller. Who is she? Helen Keller is an American author, political activist, and tireless humanitarian. What is she famous for? Keller is most famous for being the first deaf-blind person in the United States to earn a Bachelor's of Arts degree. Her early life and the breakthrough moment with her teachers, Anne Sullivan, was immortalized in the play and the film Miracle Worker. Why I chose her. Helen Keller I chose Helen Keller not only because she's a powerful symbol of overcoming adversity, but also because her life illustrates the profound impact of intervention on severe multisensory communication disorders, and her later life demonstrates fierce advocacy for disability rights and social justice. The communication disorder. Helen Keller had a complex multisensory communication disorder resulting in early childhood illness. Type of communication disorder. Keller had deaf-blindness, also spelled deaf-blindness, which is the concurrent presence of both vision and hearing loss. This combination creates a unique and severe communication challenges as a person cannot access the world through sight or sound. Her deaf-blindness was acquired. She was born with her senses of sight and hearing intact. At 19 months old in 1882, she contracted an illness often described by doctors at the time as brain fever, which was likely now meningitis or scarlet fever, that resulted in the loss of both of her sight and hearing. The loss of hearing at such a young age is particularly significant as it severely impacted her ability to develop spoken language. Let's look at the characteristics of her disorder, starting with the general features of acquired deaf-blindness as an infant. Major characteristics of deaf-blindness are profound sensory deprivation, communication delay and absence, and sensory-seeking behaviors. In the sense of profound sensory deprivation, the primary characteristic is the inability to access information visually or orally. This restricts access to spoken language, environmental sounds, and visual cues. Communication delay absence was because she was deafened before acquiring spoken language. She could not learn to speak conventionally. This results in immediate and profound language and communication deficits. Sensory-seeking behaviors was the frustration and isolation that often led to her exhibiting emotional and behavioral problems, her famous tantrums, as lacked a functional way to communicate her needs, feelings, or understand her environment as a whole. Now let's focus on the characteristics specific to Helen Keller. Early communication attempts. Before Anne Sullivan, Helen was highly intelligent and developed a system of over 60 home signs or primitive signs with her family. This showed a strong initiative drive to communicate. Sensory compensation. She relied heavily on her remaining senses, touch and smell and taste, touch to read Braille, feel vibrations, and most importantly, communicate via fingerspelling, smell and taste, to recognize the people and places. Oral speech. Though she worked tirelessly for 25 years with speech therapists, her spoken voice remained difficult for most to understand. This is a common challenge for individuals who lose hearing before the typical period of speech acquisition. Impacts on Helen Keller's life. The impact of her deaf-blindness was immense, transforming the typical development path into one defined by isolation and challenge. Daily activities were initially dependent on her companion or teacher. Learning simple tasks like dressing, eating, and interacting with objects had to be taught through social, tactile, hands-on, and highly structured routines. Social life. Prior to intervention, she was isolated and considered unruly by many. Post-intervention, her social life became global. However, the communication was always mediated. Anne Sullivan and later aides like Polly Thompson were her eyes and her ears, interpreting lectures, conversations, and the environment around her. Academic and professional life. Her career was a testament to her determination and successful communication. In the academic sense, she graduated from Radcliffe College, a monumental intellectual achievement that defied social expectations for a person with her disabilities. As a professional aspect, as an author and a lecturer, she used Braille, the typewriter, and fingerspelling, interpreted by Anne, to communicate her ideas, transforming her disability into a platform for global advocacy. Self-advocacy and discrimination. Helen Keller was remarkably articulate about her experience, often using poetic language to describe her world, and she was outspoken about discrimination. Keller often referred to her life before language as being a ship lost at sea in a dense fog. Her famous quote about the moment of connection at the water pump reads, "That living word awakened my soul, gave it light, hope, joy, and set it free." She consistently minimized her personal struggle to focus on the struggles of the working class and other marginalized groups. Experienced discrimination? Yes. After she embraced radical political views, advocating for socialism and co-founding the ACLU, many critics suddenly weaponized her disability. Journalists who had previously praised her as a miracle now suggested that her radical ideas were not her own, but merely parroted words of her teacher Anne Sullivan, essentially saying, "How could a disabled woman know anything about politics?" which is severely wrong. Keller responded by stating her political views were formed through her own reading and critical thought, saying, "I am no longer simply a deaf-blind wonder. I am a serious worker." Treatment and intervention. Helen Keller received comprehensive lifelong intervention that was pioneering for its time. The actual treatment she received was Anne Sullivan's teachings from 1887 to 1936. The primary intervention was consistent, highly structured use of finger spelling into her palm, a tactile form of sign language. This was the foundation of all of her subsequent language acquisition. Tactile learning. She learned to read Braille and to use a typewriter. Speech therapy. She received lessons at the Horace Mann School for Deaf to learn to speak using the Tadmo method, where she placed her hand on the speaker's face to feel the vibrations of the throat, the movement of the lips, and the puff of the air for certain sounds. Appropriate intervention for a modern context. A child with congenital deafblindness today would receive an individualized family service plan, including assertive technology, hearing aids or cochlear implants, orientation and mobility training, speech-language pathology services, which focused on early communication strategies such as pro-tactile, sign language, and developing functional communications across environments. These are my references, and thank you for watching.